Hey everyone, this is Big King Tars, and today I have a review of the Masters of the Universe Masterverse Vintage Collection Skeletor. In 2022, Mattel released a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Masterverse Figure 2-pack to commemorate the 40th anniversary of the Masters of the Universe property. The pack included new versions of He-Man and Skeletor inspired by their vintage toy design, die-cast weapons, repro comics, and a ring based on the glow-in-the-dark ring that came with the vintage Trapjaw figure. The Skeletor in this pack didn't have any flocking like the He-Man it came with, but it did have a moving jaw that opened and closed. The version of He-Man that came with this 2-pack saw a single card release the same year in 2022. We wouldn't see Skeletor until 2025 with the advent of the vintage collection. The packaging for this release is more in line with the Masterverse packaging following Wave 11, while following the same Red Rock exploding theme from the vintage packaging that started with 40th anniversary He-Man. This time the window is much smaller and it only shows part of Skeletor and the Havoc staff. And just like with the 40th anniversary He-Man, the packaging doesn't have any name or any artwork on the sides, it just continues the theme. The back of the box features new artwork by Axel Jimenez and David de la Cala Alonso that pays homage to the vintage package art by Errol McCarthy. The lower half of the backs of the box art features illustrations similar to what you saw with the vintage figures displaying the action features of the figure. While I can appreciate the artwork as well as the overall packaging design, we're here about the figure, so let's get it open. Skeletor comes packed with a closed right fist, an open left hand, a recolor of the New Eternia He-Man Power Sword, and a recolored and slightly retooled Havoc staff from New Eternia Skeletor. We'll get more into that in a little bit. The cardboard insert shows a diagram of what's included in the package as well. And here we have Skeletor out of the box. You can immediately recognize there's a lot of reused parts here, but the parts that are new make a huge difference. He has a newly sculpted head based on the one that came in the 2-pack but no longer has a movable jaw. He has the new harness, and he has a new cingulum, and new feet. The harness and the cingulum are both cast in a dark purple plastic. Both have accents painted in a light metallic purple. This paint job carries over to the back as well. The body is cast in a pale blue color while also having muscle shading. The hood and feet are also cast in the same dark purple plastic. Getting a closer look at the face, it's painted in a greenish yellow with a dark wash over it, and if you look deep in his eye sockets you can see red pupils. While it would have been nice to have a moving jaw like they did with the SDCC 2-pack, this is still a very good sculpt. In fact, I'd probably argue that this is probably one of the best, if not the best, Skeletor head sculpt we've gotten in the entire Masterverse lineup until now. Looking at the lower legs, we can see that they're a combination of both newly tooled parts as well as reused parts. The upper legs are reused from New Eternia Zodak, while the feet are newly tooled parts that closely resemble his vintage counterpart. We can also see that he includes a new gripping right hand that's retooled slightly from all the previous Skeletors that feature a finger pointing out. This time the hand is more in a cup shape and doesn't have a single booger hook hanging out. The torso is a reuse of the same torso that came at the 40th anniversary He-Man. Just like with 40th anniversary He-Man, if you're displaying him with his armor, he's going to look perfectly fine. Skeletor comes with a reused New Eternia He-Man Power Sword, this time cast in a glossy purple plastic. Here you can see it alongside redecos of the same sword. And just like the 40th anniversary He-Man sword, this features no additional detail paint work and it's not metallic. Skeletor also comes with his Havoc staff. This time it's based on the same sculpt that was used in the New Eternia Skeletor first release, however there are slight changes to the mold. This one features a thinner handle, and the handle connects to the skull in a different manner. Here we can see the new Havoc staff compared to the previous Havoc staff from New Eternia Skeletor, and just for comparison, the Revelation Skeletor's Havoc staff. Since this is a Masterverse figure, the head is swappable. You can interchange between other Masterverse heads as well as Origins heads. And now for articulation. Head swivels and rotates on a ball peg. Shoulders swing on a hinge and they rotate. Arms rotate at the biceps. We have double jointed elbows. Wrists rotate 360 degrees and they swivel on a hinge. Upper torso rocks side to side and back and forth. Waist has 360 degree rotation. Hips are on a ball peg and can kick out on the side and forward. Double jointed knees. 360 degree hip rotation, boot rotation, and the ankle joints move back and forth and the feet rotate. Like all other Masterverse figures, hands are interchangeable. Right gripping hand comes off and you can put on a brand new fist, and the left hand comes off and you can put on the open left hand. Since this isn't the first reinterpretation of the vintage Skeletor, let's take a look at some previous Skeletors to compare. First off is Classic Skeletor. We have the reissue Classic Skeletor single card version, and then we have the version that came from the 2-pack Toys R Us exclusive with Lex Luthor. As you can see, they are very, very similar. However, the Classic Skeletor takes more of its cues from the vintage cardback art as opposed to Vintage Collection Skeletor, which actually closely follows the details of the original vintage figure. Here's Vintage Collection Skeletor alongside the first release of the Origin Skeletor as well as the running change with the updated head. Seeing them side by side, it's easy to see that they're all based on the same vintage figure design. Here he is alongside the 2000X inspired Origin Skeletor, as well as a customized Keldor from the Origins of Evil 2-pack to incorporate more of the 2000X elements. And finally, here he is next to Revelation Skeletor from the first wave of Masterverse, as well as the first New Eternia Skeletor that up until this point was probably the closest to a vintage Skeletor within the line. You can really see the similarities between the Vintage Collection Skeletor and the New Eternia Skeletor. However, New Eternia Skeletor follows more of the mini-comic design as opposed to the vintage toy which Vintage Collection follows. And here's Skeletor alongside 40th Anniversary He-Man, Faker, and Zodak from the Vintage Collection. And now my final thoughts. Overall, I think this is a great figure. The paint details on the armor are done really well, as well as the airbrush line work for the muscle detail. The paint wash on the face is way better than what we got with the 40th Anniversary He-Man. He comes with few accessories, but in reality he really doesn't need any more. Unlike the 40th He-Man, even if you have classics, this is closer to the vintage toy whereas classics was based on the cardback art. Unless you have the Super 7 Skeletor, which that was based more on the vintage toy design. Even though it's a retool and a slight repaint of the SDCC 22 figure, it's a welcome addition to your collection if you didn't have the exclusive. It poses well and looks great amongst the other Masterverse and Classics figures. If you enjoyed this video, please comment, like, and subscribe to my channel. Until next time.